I think the only concern IELTS students have is in and around the speaking test, because in a speaking section you got to be literally and practically, you need to speak to someone, right? And for this particular point, we stand really we stand in the crowd, I must say, because here, like from 11 a.m. in the morning to 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. in the evening, we do have that, like 24/7 mock tests going on. Like if a student is pursuing IELTS classes in other institutions in the city, the person that student can definitely come to our office and sit for the free speaking mock test. And that is also supported by the evidence that nobody fails in speaking and writing test here in the institution, really.
Okay.
In other sections of IELTS, like in reading, if you do not practice well, if you do not have that eagerness or hunger for going through passages, if you have poor comprehension ability, if your vocabs are typically, if you have poor vocabulary, sometimes you could see failure in reading section. Yeah, I have to accept it as well. Some of my students have failed in reading section, but in speaking section, I do not let my students see failure. Why? Because I do run these mock tests absolutely regularly. I do ask them like tons of questions, and I do listen to them. And if they do commit mistakes in some parts of their presentation or performance, I do rectify those mistakes. And by doing it, yeah, it has been the history, Miss Manisha, that in IELTS, my students never fail in speaking and writing section. So yeah, it's all about the speciality of having mock tests here at Success. Yeah,
So, saying the reading test, you said people like aspirants fail in reading section.
yeah.
Why is it so, and what kind of tricks
That's
and
an
tips you
interesting
have to
question,
say?
Manisha. Yes, reading section, like I would say, if you ask me like by number, I would say like on the last month, 17 of my students appear for the IELTS test, right? And two of them failed actually. And that's in the reading section of IELTS. And the singular reason for this failure would be that they do not have that what this passion towards reading passages or paragraphs. And we are not a reading culture. Nepalese culture is not a learning culture, honestly speaking. We don't like reading books literally. And the IELTS reading section is designed, if I'm not wrong, Manisha, to check that whether the candidates or the students who are appearing for the section, whether the students have the ability of comprehension, whether they can understand the meanings of passages when they read it, whether they can actually get the gist or core of the passages when they read it. And because of our perceived poor culture in reading or of reading, that students find these IELTS reading passages pretty boring, and they're so difficult, right? And that's why. And the next important thing is the negligence. Students do not actually prioritize the reading section. They do always go after the writing section. They're very much obsessed with the speaking test of IELTS, right? And some students actually tell me that they do stand in front of the mirror and speak with themselves for them to get good score in the speaking test. But nobody takes care of what the reading section of IELTS. So in my experience, Manisha, I can say that if someone like you did in the past, obviously,
Yes.
if some students wish to get good marks in IELTS, and if they want to fulfill their dreams, they need to singularly focus on the reading section of IELTS, really, because it is not difficult, but it could be difficult if you do not prioritize it over other sections.
Yes.
So it's because that, sure, it's not that the reading section is like absolutely fundamentally difficult. The British Council has this very clandestine intention of making it tough. No, it's like on par with other sections of IELTS as well. But we do typically see failures in reading section because students do not go after it. They do not read much. They do not like buying books from the market. They do probably solve 5 7 passages throughout their preparation journey, and that's not enough, right? And that's why they do see failure sometimes. So yeah, that's the reason.
Okay, so my next question is going to be that I am also a IELTS student, so I
Yeah,
have
you
this.
used to be an IELTS student.
Yes,
Yeah,
I also used to
yeah.
be a IELTS student. So I had this main question very firstly in my journey in IELTS. So I had this question that why IELTS is different from the we are different from the school we had learned in school, that
Mhm.
how IELTS is different from in school life, and now what.
That would be a challenging question for me to answer, Melissa. How IELTS is different, and why do sometimes students who have obtained, let's say, very impressive GPA in their plus two do not get the intended score in IELTS? The answer could be I'm not sure about it, but I think that IELTS sometimes becomes this very burdensome item for students. It's simply because that it tests the depth of your English, that you need to be basically not talented, but you need to be basically aware of the very basic principles of English. Without knowing, let's say, the very basic principles of grammar, without knowing some thousand words in English, without having this outspoken personality, without having without having good pronunciation, no matter how talented you were during your college days, it would be tremendously challenging for students to get this beautiful 6 or 6.5. So IELTS remains to be different. It is different. It is because it's very authentic, right? It's very authentic. You cannot tamper with IELTS. You cannot simply make some cheatings or something here. So you need to be very much okay with the ABC of English to get along with the world of IELTS, right? So in during our college days, our teachers would come to our rescue. They would help us with notes. They would help us with answers. They would help us with other things, right? But in IELTS, when you sit in the exam hall, there is nobody with you to come to your rescue. You will have to depend on your intelligence, your practice, and your knowledge of English to get that band 6 or 7. So it's very pristine and it's pure and it's very unadulterated, I would say, right? And you cannot simply use some tricks or techniques. I would say, Miss Manisha, that in IELTS, tricks do not work here, right? Sometimes we come across statements like, you can memorize this many number of words, you can memorize that paragraph, you can memorize these idioms and something. In my experience, I can say that memorized items do not work in IELTS. You got to be really authentic, a person who's preparing with authenticity and honesty as well. And that's why this IELTS, although like other exams, but IELTS is definitely different and very pure in nature.
Okay. So as we can say that Success Academy's mock test is going very popular and
Yeah,
very viral. So
yeah.
why do you think that is going happening, and why do you think main purpose of doing mock test?
Main purpose of doing this is not to extract something from the students, literally, because my students are in the need of what the typical real exam like environment, right? In the real exam, in their IELTS test, they will have to sit with the examiner who will be a stranger, and it is difficult for them to get along with that person, right? So mock tests are getting popular and students find these mock tests really effective simply because they do want to have the simulation or the visualization of the real test which they are going to face in the days or months to come, right? Because if someone like you sits with me and answers my questions in a typical exam like way, the person would develop the familiarity, let's say, which will be eventually helpful for that student to appear for the real exam. And if someone, let's say, appears for the mock tests, he had success for like 8, 10 times, I think the person would develop that needed level of confidence and courage to, let's say, to face that real examiner, to counter those real questions, and eventually getting that beautiful score which that person is thinking of. So mock tests are very important simply because that during mock tests we here try to create the simulation of the real test so that students do not get shocks and shocked in the real exam. So that's why these mock tests are popular.
Okay, so if I say that people in IELTS exam, people should have no uh, very less vocabulary, or to know their very many
Yeah,
vocabulary.
that's the question I can really answer nicely. So again, just like the grammar, IELTS aspirants or the students are sometimes obsessed with vocabulary as well. Manisha, vocabulary, in my opinion, is something that needs years of experience and exposure to develop, really, right? So, like within 2 months, just because you need vocabs in IELTS, it's impossible for you to memorize like thousand around words and use them in your real sentences. It's truly impossible, right? And if you even do that, it would be really inappropriate way of learning English. So what I think is that if an IELTS student comes here and tells me that I'm in need of band 6 or 6.5 or 7, then my approach would be that what English you have in your head is enough. You will actually have to work on other aspects of English, not on this vocabulary or grammar, because that's truly unattainable. In 2 months' time, nobody can, Manisha, like memorize certain number of words and use those words in sentences, right? That would be a futile dream, I would say. Rather, what English you have in your head, think of it and at least speak with perfection. Do try to take care of your basic grammar while writing sentences, let's say. Even I can tell you, Manisha, that for someone to get 6.5 in IELTS writing, if that person takes care of 4 5 basic things, let's say singular plural, tenses, you are writing this paraphrase of this IELTS essay question, do take care of the proper use of punctuation marks, right? And I would say, capital letter, small letter, done with that, you will get that 6.5. So you don't need to have that fancy word or like, what heavy terms or terminologies to get this 7 or something. So the English that you have in your head is pretty sufficient. Do try to take that English to a particular, right path, right? If you do that, you will excel in this exam. And that has been the history, really.
Okay.
And I'm sure about it. Yeah.
So, if saying about teaching, so
Yeah.
what is your main philosophy to teach IELTS aspirant in upcoming
I do
days?
not have any philosophy as such. I'm still a learner of English language, obviously, but I do believe in what dedication and hard work, and I'm very passionate about it. Really, when I enter into the classroom, I don't do that for the sake of getting some amount of money or drawing, this fee or something from my students. I do it because I believe once I teach my students, I'm like enriching my English simultaneously. I'm like enriching myself with English as well. Like, for example, remember the other day I learned these two words in English, and the best platform for me to practically use these two words is in the classroom, right? So that's how I create situations. And when I learn something in English, because I do have stacks of books now which I'm working on, I do want to learn English as well. I'm not this, a person who knows everything. No, I'm a learner of English, obviously. But the philosophy would be that you got to be devoted to your work, and you need to at least think of enriching yourself as well while delivering sessions, while teaching my students. I believe that I'm also working on my English as well. So that's the philosophy which has been working very effectively for the last 5 6 years. Yeah.
Okay. So in Success Academy, we are trying trial sessions for IELTS
Yeah.
aspirants. So why do you think that these experiment or these practice session is
Yeah, the word trial period is a very cliche word. Everybody uses it, like, but we don't need trial period, right? If someone is a genuine student and who actually wants to join classes here at Success, we will not let that person down, right? But at least for the sake of these students, to understand the environment here, to just see the ambience here. If we singularly say that this is the first day of your journey here, they would be frightened of it, they would be skeptical of it. So we do simply say you will be given with 7 days trial, because we are very sure from the very first moment that this student will definitely continue taking classes here. But we still say that you are here for the trial period. After 7 days, you can decide whether to continue this journey or about it altogether. But yeah, no one returns from here. If he joins the classes, everybody gets with the world of Success. Yeah.
okay? So if someone take the trial period, as you say, for 7 days, and
Mm.
after that they do not want to continue on the Success Academy, why do you think that happened?
It's also because that people do have different priorities and different sort of thought processes, let's say. Yes, this has happened in the past. Like, let's say a girl comes in here and says, I'll be taking 7 8 days classes, the so-called trial period, and the girl never turns back. Why is that? Because probably her parents are asking her to go to Kathmandu. Probably we do not have that level of credibility in the minds of parents, let's say. Sometimes in a small city like Tulsipur, it is difficult for us to convince the parents and students that we are actually having really fantastic IELTS PT classes as well. That's why, because of these considerations, sometimes students think of going to Kathmandu or in other prime cities of this country to pursue the IELTS classes. But that's a very negligible number, and that doesn't matter much, I guess. But I would say that to all parents and students who wish to get into the world of IELTS, that you do not need to travel to Kathmandu for IELTS PT classes. Really, you can simply come to the office and start your journey. Yeah.
So some students came here to inquiry about IELTS. So they say that we do not have any kind of confidence in that, so we cannot do that. So what is your answer on that?
Yeah, confidence matters a lot. Confidence, actually, I do use a couple of words while running IELTS classes. The first one is attitude. I believe, Miss Manisha, that along with English, because everybody talks about English, nobody takes care of other personality traits. Every person has a very different set of personality traits, right? Someone is outspoken, the person would like to talk to others, he's a very sociable person, having a very loud and clear voice. Probably these sort of personality traits would be an additional asset to the person's journey. But at the same time, that sometimes people's personality is inward looking as well. They are not sociable, they do not like to get surrounded by other people or the students, and they don't have this habit of talking much. And they do have typically very faint voice, which is inaudible as well. So people with such traits or attributes, it would be difficult for them, at least first,